Little follow
Honestly, I
some.
think that if you consult the CrossFit Journal's article on CrossFitting during pregnancy, they did an excellent job summing that up because, if you're newly pregnant and you're not doing CrossFit, it's probably not the time to take up any intense CrossFit. You could still do it, scaled, modified, but if you're not used to high intensity interval training, that's not the time to introduce it. But if you're somebody
You're
that's
not going to
been
hit the ground
right,
running.
exactly. If you're somebody that's been doing an activity, CrossFit, marathon running, whatever, for at least 6 months prior to your pregnancy, you can continue that. And we have a lot of good data. It's all retrospective, where because you're never going to get good double-blind controlled kind of trials, but that there are no increase in complications.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jared Basson with Mark McCain, and you're listening to Triumph Every Day, where we discuss the journeys that shape the lives of our guests and how it brought them to where they are today. And our wonderful guest today is Allana Oak, not Allana,
Allana.
Dr. Oak, if you will.
Some days.
Some days. Welcome. Thanks for coming out and chatting with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having
me. We've known each other at least through mutual friends for some time now. We're all kind of in a very relatively close-knit community. So if nothing else, we've seen each other in passing quite a bit. So if you want, let's just start out, kind of tell everybody where you're from and, how you maybe got to where you are right now.
Oh, that's a long story.
We'll start out. Where are you from?
I'm old.
Where are you
Okay,
from?
I grew up in a little town in West Virginia, Canova, West Virginia, about 6 miles outside of Huntington. So it's the westernmost point of West Virginia.
I was born in West Virginia.
Where?
Wheeling.
So he's up in the Panhandle.
Yeah, north.
I'm over on the west. Exactly. So grew up in West Virginia. Went to Georgetown College in Georgetown, Kentucky, and then couldn't decide. Knew I had always wanted to be a physician, but kind of got a little bit overwhelmed with the idea of medical school. And then I had this little strange epiphany on a retreat with my Baptist Student Union, where I was teaching a devotion, and I just felt like I needed to teach. And so I kind of went home and, dropped the bomb on my mom. Yeah, we've been thinking pre-med for 3.5 years, but I might want to be a teacher. And my mom's a teacher. She's a special ed teacher. So I decided to go to grad school and just kind of fill this out for a little bit and see. And I quickly figured out that to be a teacher, college professor, I had to do a lot of research, and I didn't like research at all. I liked being with people. So it was just a natural fit for me to go back to my original dream of being a physician. So then I went from Marshall University master's program in anatomy to medical school at the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine in Lewisburg, West Virginia.
Wow, it's quite a little journey, and I would assume a pretty short amount of time, right?
Well, just kind of typical, from high school through the 4 years in college, 1 year in grad school, another 4 years in med school. And then the way I ended up back in Northern Kentucky was through St. Elizabeth. And when I was looking at residency programs, I kind of narrowed down what states I was interested in, and St. Elizabeth had the perfect residency and fellowship program for me. So I moved here in '95, did 4 years of residency and fellowship, and I went to Moorhead, Kentucky for a year, and then St. recruited me back, and I've been here full time since 2000.
Very cool.
What made you pick Georgetown?
Okay, it's kind of interesting. My best friend in middle school, her older brother was my idol. He's a cardiologist. He went to Georgetown, and I just needed to do everything he did.
Right.
Okay. So I kind of looked at it as, it must be a good pre-med school. When they had a very high acceptance rate into medical school. And it was a small college. I come from a small town. It was a perfect fit for me. A couple hours, only 2 hours away from home.
So when you kind of talk about wanting to teach and obviously finding that I'm not, the research part of it is not something that you enjoy, how do you fulfill that desire to teach?
So that's really neat. Okay, so I was basically doing research on cockroaches. I was doing neuroanatomy research, studying them. I was like, this is so not me. I've got to get out of the lab. And and be with people. So, but then I thought, do I want to be college professor? Do I want to go back to physician? And I thought, why can't I be a teaching physician? So when I went through residency program and I started looking at jobs, I was like, oh my gosh, these are physicians that teach. So when St. E recruited me back here, I became the director of their obstetric fellowship, and I teach the residents at St. E. So it's a balance of both worlds. I have a private practice as well as.
So you still get to fulfill that kind of
Absolutely.
scratch that itch, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's perfect. I have med students from all over, UC, UK, Louisville, Pikeville. We've got a new medical school starting at NKU. So those students will be with me, and so, but I still have one-on-one patient care. So it's the best of both worlds.
Sounds like St. E's kind of taken over the
10,000-pound gorilla of medicine. Yeah. I mean, it's all of northern Kentucky now.
Is that obviously you don't have to speak on their behalf. Is that
right.
Is that a because some people look at that as good, as they can put a lot of money into different research, but also people could look at that as maybe a detriment of, hey, they're the only ones you can go to.
It can be both good and bad. The strengths that it has is that you can be experts in a lot of fields. And what you don't want to do is fragment off medical care, because you can't be, you can't be one person expert. You need to be a team. So that's why you see all these institutes forming with St. Elizabeth has it going on, the Price, TriHealth, all the area big players.
Right. And I'm sure you have to have, certain systems that they have to talk to each other too.
Exactly.
So if you're have your system that's up and running at one location, it has to be able to talk to a different location.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. What as far as where you kind of started to where you are now, what's that transition look like, kind of from when you first started in Northern Kentucky to where you are now?
Wow. So when I started at St. E in 2000, I was single. I had no children. I was a workhorse. Okay. And now fast forward, I'm married. I have 3 teenagers. I'm still a workhorse, but your priorities kind of change and the balance that you find. And it's kind of interesting through all that is how I found CrossFit, because I wasn't taking care of myself, and I was like, I have these 3 little ones. I've got to do better, at being healthy for them. Yeah. And so 2011 was
that's a great way to look at it, because unfortunately a lot of people look at it in the other direction, but it all comes back to that, put the mask on yourself before, helping someone else kind of thing, because so many people will sacrifice their own health for the love and affection of someone else, whether it's family. And again, thinking that you're doing the right thing, but you can't help others if you can't help yourself.
Absolutely. And so I can remember this vacation we had in Florida that where I was so tired and overweight and out of shape that I didn't want to play with my kids. They get these cute little kids running around the beach. They want to play, and I want to sit and I like to read, but I didn't want to play. So I was like, something's got to change. Yeah. So in October of 2011, I took on a new position at St. Elizabeth, and I thought, anytime you take on anything new, it's always a time of reflection and a time to move forward with resolutions. And I was like, okay, we're going to get our fitness game on, because I was an athlete in high school. I'm like, what has happened to me? How did I let this happen?
Yeah. What did you play in high school?
In high school, I was a cheerleader through high school and college, both. But my school was so small, and it was kind of school where you could play every sport. Sure. So even in high school, I played basketball, I played softball. Through middle school, I ran track. But then into college, I played intramural basketball, but my collegiate sport was cheerleading.
Yeah. That's a huge thing when you can figure out early on that, like, I need to take. Again, unfortunately, a lot of people wait too long, or it takes something traumatic to kind of happen for them to realize that, like, I need to take some time for myself. What does that look like starting into something like CrossFit? I guess, how did you find it?
It was life-changing. Okay, so it was, God is how I found it. I mean, it's just the universe puts you where you need to be, whether it's a tough time or a positive time. I'm a true believer in that. And we were going to Silver Lake, family, that sort of thing. And I just said, like, I had that new position, and so October of 2011, I'm going to do better. So I called up Silver Lake and said, I want a personal training package. And who did they pair me with? Matt Galster. And it was a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
I mean, a match made in heaven. I'll show you the pictures. It's the transformation that took place is absolutely phenomenal. Physical, emotional.
Sure.
So I did a year of personal training with Matt, and then when he opened up, his CrossFit, opened up Umph, he said, "Hey, I'm doing this. I think you would fit in well here." And I thought, no way. Those are the people that go in the basement over at Silver Lake, and do all the crazy stuff. Yeah. I was like, I'm not an underground athlete, because that's what the program was called over there. And he's like, yes, you are. And summer of, 2012? So that was less than a year after I met Matt. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was perfect match for me because it fed that need for community that I have, combined with a team sport. It's individual accomplishments, but we're doing this as a team.
Yeah.
So it was such a natural fit.
And it's community. I think it's sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Yeah. Buckets.
Yeah. You got like some 311 playing in the background. And, the music should at least stop here in a second. But that's I think that's such a misconception too, right? You're looking at these people going, there's no way I could ever do that. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, this is just working out.
Yeah.
Like it's just fitness. It's just you're putting a different kind of spin on it, if you will. So many people get wrapped up in this, like, I don't know if they think like we're doing backflips all day. They're like, what we're doing is not anything different than you would be doing with a personal trainer. You're just doing it in a different realm, and that same kind of accountability. I think highest level accountability is always going to be personal training. You're one-on-one with a client. But then there's things that you're missing, which is, again, a community atmosphere that you have in a group class where you just can't replicate that. I don't care who you are, how great of a coach you are. You cannot replicate everyone cheering on the person who's in, quote, last place.
Exactly.
And that's one of my favorite things when you just see someone either break through some sort of mental plateau, a physical plateau, and with the help of 25 other people in the room. And it's just such an amazing thing to see.
And I think as a coach, you realize what people are capable of.
Yeah.
And they don't realize what they're capable of. And helping them achieve that, and that is its greatest reward.
That's what I kind of heard whenever you said that about Matt, was he believed in me, more than I believed in myself.
Okay, so it's kind of funny that you said that, because back in 2007 or 8, a friend of mine, Dr. Luigi Velasquez, said, "Oh, Allana, you need to try CrossFit," with his fabulous Puerto Rican accent.
Yeah.
And
just need that guy to do our videos.
He's fabulous. He's sports medicine doc for Beacon. He was one of my residents, and at the time, I'm teaching him medicine, and he's wanting to teach me about fitness. And I asked a personal trainer.
Sorry, real quick.
That's okay.
He's a sports medicine doctor at Beacon, and he recommended you to do CrossFit.
He did.
In 2000.
You want me to say that again?
In 2007
or 8.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh. Sorry. Go ahead.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. That's a whole nother podcast. Oh my gosh, absolutely. But Luigi came to me, and he knew I was struggling, so I went to a trainer and asked about it, and I was told in 2007, 8, oh, CrossFit's not for you. CrossFit's not for you. That's not good stuff. And I thought, okay, it's like a doctor giving bad advice. You believe, you put your trust in people who say they're an expert in the field. So then, fast forward to 2011, Matt Galster says, we're going to do CrossFit. And I said, I've been told I shouldn't do that, but that's not for me. He was like, CrossFit's for everybody. He said, I do CrossFit with everybody. They don't know they're doing CrossFit. But you see that client over there that just left? She just did CrossFit. She didn't know it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
and guess what? She doesn't have a broken back.
And she doesn't have a broken back. Exactly. And she's okay, or he's okay, and blah, blah, blah. So Matt believed in me, and that made me believe in myself. And then the next thing I know, oh my gosh, I'm doing a pull-up. and then I'm doing a toes to bar, and then I'm doing handstand push-ups. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I never thought that I could do this kind of
And
stuff.
again, you're doing that as an adult.
As an adult. I was 46 years old.
Yeah, which is again one of the exciting things where you can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing.
Right.
When you see a lot of these people come through and you just see these light bulbs start popping up.
Yeah.
Oh, this is how this translates. Our fundamentals. I just had a conversation with someone who's going through it right now, and having a conversation with her, explaining, where she's talking about front rack.
Mm-hmm.
So how we do our fundamentals. It's a progressive kind of series, and explaining like the front rack transfers to anything overhead. It transfers to the clean. It transfers,
Absolutely.
and how everything is kind of interwoven into everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the best examples I could give is outside of the gymnastic skills. He handed me a PVC pipe and said, okay, we're going to put this over your head, and then you're going to squat. And I went, okay. And so I held it up overhead, and I said, do you want me to do what? And he said, I want you to squat. And I was like, I couldn't squat.
Right.
Yeah.
I could not squat with my arms over my head. I said, you're crazy. And then he takes it, and he does. I was like, I'll never be able to do that. And I remember that was my best lesson in mobility. It was like, okay, this is not, I've already lost some weight here, and my cardiovascular fitness is improving, but there's a big part of this that I don't
You
have.
start to level up, and one of the things I like to see, especially unfortunately with women, we still get the I don't want to get bulky thing. Which I always joke that I've been trying to get bulky for the last 10 years. Like it's not easy.
Exactly.
But to see that transition from, I want to tone up is another one.
Right.
To, I want to deadlift 250 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I want to back squat my body weight. Like those are the really, really cool, again, kind of you switch over to this other side of like, oh, I'm actually comfortable with how I look and feel.
Mm-hmm. It's fabulous. And you feel strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel healthy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's
the very next,
incredible.
so, 2012 started the CrossFit. We took a family vacation in 2013, and it was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Hiking, zip lining, playing on the beach, snorkeling, and I felt great. I didn't want to just stay under the umbrella and read books all day.
Right.
Even though there's time for that too.
Yeah. But don't you just want everyone to have that?
I do. Oh, I so want it. And what's great is I have a love-hate relationship with social media, as many people do. But social media really chronicled my story, and that's how people started, looking into it. They were like, "Oh my gosh, look what she's doing. She's, in her late 40s, and we didn't get all focused on weight. My big thing was get a body comp done. Don't look at BMI. Don't look at the weight on it, because everybody's going to lose, and then they're going to plateau while they're becoming more fit.
Yep.
So I was a big believer in get a body comp done.
And your things like blood work and things like that. We've had people come through where they are again on the number side of things, maybe in the same spot, but then I'm off like 2 of my blood pressure medicines, and that is literally saving money, saving your life.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole nother side of it that, again, because we know you can see people who physically look well on the outside, but could be deteriorating on the inside.
Completely deteriorating.
Yeah, and so
skinny fat is what we
skinny
we
fat.
Call
Yep.
them. Yeah.
Yep. And so like, so you could be in that realm and be completely unhealthy, or you could look the same, but hey, your cholesterol numbers are doing much better.
Much better. Yeah. So then I really started researching what's been wrong in the medical community, because I wasn't taught this in med school. You spend hundreds of thousands of dollars going to med school, and that's not the diet. The diet Matt gave me was not the diet I was taught to give people to make their hearts healthy. That sort of thing when I was doing primary care. And so I really started digging in deep, and that's what I loved about CrossFit as well. It's like science. Okay, let's get into the sports science and nutrition, and understanding the value of high intensity interval training for fat loss.
Yeah.
And then that exploded. So now, of course, I'm obsessed with CrossFit Health and that whole
I think there's
thing going on.
One of the really exciting things to see too is the open-mindedness of CrossFit. and how we're going to grab this from here and grab this from here and grab this from here and just mesh it all together into a cohesive unit where, again, traditionally speaking, like we went through the whole CSCS book, and it's like you're just reading this like dry. There's so much CrossFit came from that, but it's just set in their ways. It's very, very cut and dry. This is the way that it was, and this is the way it has to be.
Exactly.
Versus, this is a new technique that actually trumps the old one.
Right.
I
mean, wouldn't you love to have some type of quality marker where, they always talk about some of the, medical care reform that is happening is, almost like value-based or quality-based. I'm going to be held accountable for, if I was a primary care doc, of making sure that diabetics A1C is coming down appropriately, and I will have increased reimbursement from insurance companies if I'm taking care. Okay, who does that better than anybody? CrossFit. I mean, if you're going to be results-based,
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think everyone needs that. I mean, that's our toughest conversation to have with clients. But it's a game changer if we can actually get them to tell us what their goal is.
Yeah.
And it's usually not, if it's something obviously they're passionate about, they can boom, let us know. But let's just like have this conversation. And then once you have that obviously to work towards, then you're dramatically going to improve across all time.
So many times they're scared of failure.
Right.
They have an overwhelming fear of failure, so they don't want to put it on paper. And by the time a lot of, men or women come in, they've tried X number of fitness plans, diets, and none of them worked. And so it's almost like helping somebody quit smoking. Every time they fail, they're less like, so we don't use that. I don't use that word anymore. Yeah. And it's something I've learned with my kids. I got this, I'm going to totally steal it from Ben Bergeron, but you either succeed, win, pass, whatever you're achieving, or you learn. Yeah. Yep. That saying, that's made an enormous difference in my kids and, with people achieving fitness goals, that sort of thing.
Along those same lines,
you don't fail.
Along those same lines, there was I cannot remember where it was from. It might have been from the bulletproof guy. Dave Asprey. He talks
bulletproof coffee.
He talks about setting expectations setting preferences and not expectations. Meaning, if you have a expectation that I'm going to lose 30 pounds in 30 days and you don't reach it, you believe you're a failure. If you do obtain that goal, there's no joy because there's an expectation.
Right.
So if you set a preference that instead of saying I'm going to lose 30 pounds in 30 days, I have a preference that I'm going to make it to the gym 5 days a week. So then you can celebrate a win. And Mark says a lot too. Like, we need some wins. Like, you need to look for wins.
Oh, absolutely.
I talk about it with clients all the time about like, hey, look, it's our job here to basically think of a silo. It's an empty silo. And whenever you walk in your first day, we're going to start filling that freaking thing up with wins. Yeah. And we're going to build this confidence. You didn't think you'd come 3 days a week? Oh, you just did. There's another win. Didn't think you could jump on this box? Oh, there's another one. You just keep filling up. Because we know inevitably life, the world, whatever you want to say, comes against us. And it's like, I got that flat tire, I couldn't make it. Or, my kid's sick. Or, this thing. But we have to be able to look back at, like, all the wins. Because so many times people get focused on the mess and the losses. And they walk in dark space and they say, I can't do this. I'm not worried about what you can't do. Let's carve this new path. Because, I mean, as you know, being around it every day and having this awesome transformation, you don't get fitter without getting off the couch.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, if I just, all of us being, in the gym consistently, but if we all know someone in our lives that if they just continue to sit down for the next 12 months, they're not going to get any better. Yep. So we need to start somewhere. And so many times people are so hesitant they talk themselves out of it. But you need to start just getting some.
I remember my initial goal with Matt was not even a weight or to achieve a body fat percentage. I remember him saying, "Okay, we're going to set a goal. Do you have anything big coming up in your life?" So this was in October of 2011. I said, "Yes, I'm going to Greece in May." And he said, "Okay." And I said, "I would love to feel better and want to do more active things, plus look a little better in a bathing suit. And he said, okay. And so that's what we kind of focused on.
Yep.
Was not a certain number, just
and that's great.
grease.
That's the way I like to
Mm-hmm.
set those goals. Two things to finish off what you were talking about. Even with your non-new clients or seasoned athletes, you still have to look for wins.
Oh,
you know,
That's
barbell
even
club's
more
a
so.
perfect example where it's like, I haven't PR'd my snatch and and it's like, yeah, but you did doubles at 90% and made both of those. So it doesn't, like, again, those are still wins. And to your point with the goal setting, I think that those kind of things they're easier to obtain as far as mentally to kind of take these chunks out of. And two, like, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of vanity. I always tell people all the time, like, if you're not doing this for 99% of people are starting this for a vanity reason, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing.
You know,
primal.
Nothing.
It is primal.
Nothing at all.
Everyone's like, how'd you get started in CrossFit? And I was like, I was fat and I didn't like it. Like, and it's 100% the reason why, you know, like Mark and I met at an Urban Active and I'm like,
well, just to let you know, like, and I don't mind saying this at all because this was all over Facebook is so, you know, with the help of Matt and becoming part of a CrossFit community, I lost an enormous amount of fat. And the physical transformation was unbelievable. But I'd had 3 kids, and pregnancy it doesn't always, some people get lucky enough that it doesn't wreck your body, but it does stretch out your skin. And so I was like, okay, I am going to have a mommy makeover. And I told everybody in my CrossFit class, I'm having surgery this day. I'm going to have my tummy tuck done and some other things lifted. And I put it on Facebook, not pictures, of course, but because I wanted to empower women to say it is okay. It's not for everybody, but it is completely okay if you want to do this to make yourself feel better about yourself. Because if you feel more confident in clothes, if you feel more confident in a bathing suit, if you feel more confident in the bedroom, everything gets better.
It bleeds
across
over.
the board.
It bleeds over into every part. And the opposite of that, the negativity bleeds over into your life. When you don't feel happy and comfortable in your own body, and when you are just putting yourself down over and over and over again, that's going to bleed into your work life, your home life, your kids' life, their school life. I mean, so I can't pretend to know what it's like to have a child. You know, I'll never have that experience. It's
the most amazing thing that a female ever does, I think.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely want to get to that in a little bit. But it's one of those things to where I can still relate to what it feels like to be unhappy with yourself.
Oh.
You know, and to do something for yourself. Some of the most exciting clients that we get in here are those people that say, I have so much to do, but I'm doing this for myself. I've talked to my family, I've talked to my kids, I've talked to my husband, I've talked to my wife, whatever it is, and say, I'm taking 1 hour out of my day to have this for myself. And we call this a sanctuary.
Absolutely.
You know, you should be able to come in, have the worst day you've ever had, and leave here in a better mood.
Absolutely.
And if we're not doing that, then we're not doing our job. You know. Yeah. So it's one of those things.
Great analogy.
The more kind of daily relief we can give to people, I think the more successful that we're being.
You know, I think your point about doing that stuff to build more confidence in yourself, and I haven't had as much time with you as Jarrett, but whenever you said that you were coming in, I was like, oh, is she like the real happy one, you know? But it's like. Think about I hope you take pride in that because it's like, how are you being described to other people? You know what I mean? Like, what are other people saying about you?
Exactly.
Is it she's negative? Like, kind of, you literally use that word. It's so why aren't people doing these things to build more confidence? And that's why we believe in what we do so much. We're so passionate about it because we know that we're not snake oil salesmen. And people that come in here generally, like, day after day, even if they come in at least 3 days a week, whatever it is, it's 1 day a week, it's a good hour of their time spent. It's not, they're not leaving here like, oh, that was a waste of time. They're like, oh, now I got to work out, I'm feeling better about myself. We're tickled to death anytime someone gives us a compliment as small as, wow, I picked up my daughter and I didn't hurt my back.
Or a nonverbal comment being that they take the 3:30 p.m. class and they're still here at 5:30, an hour after class is over.
Just enjoying the community.
Talking to other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's it's amazing what that sense of community, will do also to build your confidence and to to improve your mindset. I mean, that's one thing that I've always been interested in psychology, kind of, but over the past few years, I've become completely obsessed with the power of the mind and mindset, and how I can use it in my daily life as a wife, as a parent, as a physician. And that came out of CrossFit, really. It did, because it came out of once you lose the weight and, okay, now I look better, I feel better. Now I'm setting goals that are sometimes athletic related. I want to achieve this, and then you get upset because you can't, like your barbell class. Well, you got to go back to mindset training,
Right.
and yeah, it's just obsessed
And helping to help others achieve certain mindset goals. We've talked about it here, and I'm sure if anyone who listens to these is probably tired of hearing us talking about it, but like problem solving ability. It's one of the things that really helped me out in a personal level of, hey, if I have this giant problem in front of me, i.e. a chipper or something like that, and like you learn how to
Absolutely.
this isn't going to kill me. I just need to work through it piece by piece, and you can take that and move that into daily life, and take any numerous examples of what you can take out of a workout and move into your daily life. And to your point about community, being able to talk to others about their experiences, what they're going through in their life.
Right.
I know Fort Wright has had a couple members pass away. We've had a couple, and it's like you can surround yourself and take a terrible moment and have a sense of community. You all knew that person, and you build this kind of sense of camaraderie out of something that was a terrible situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
love that saying that CrossFit emulates this. There's a saying where it's when you're alone, joy is only half as good and pain is twice as bad.
Yep.
So when you're alone, joy is only half as good, pain is twice as bad. And so think of the joy that you get out of the community. And if you don't have the community, the grief and stuff, and we do. I've met people that for whatever reason in their life, things just haven't gone their way, and they really don't have a good sense of community. They're either new to the area, they haven't found it, or maybe they're trying to get out of the bad community they were in, the addiction community. You know what I mean? And then they find this, and it's like, bam, there you go.
Yep.
So lift each other up.
Absolutely, and that's why so many people think it was a cult. I can see why.
I like sanctuary.
Yeah, sanctuary is a good one.
Sounds good.
I do want to talk a little bit about how many CrossFit babies you've been involved with.
It's a lot. I've actually lost track of how many, but it's
obviously
it's a handful.
That was not an intention of joining a CrossFit gym, but a result of being a part of a community, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, I just came in as any everyday athlete. Came in, and then I noticed, she was my patient, and and then I would talk to patients. My patients watched my transformation, and I think that really sparked them. Like, okay, she's like me. She has little kids, and she works a full-time job, and she's still making time for this in her life. And they, I have a handful of patients that went through that entire weight loss, self-improvement, that sort of thing. And then out of that, they have referred me, patients in. So it's, I have a nice little group of people.
Yeah, I think that's so cool.
Athletes that have delivered.
Let's talk a little bit about just fitness and pregnancy, right? Because there's, we have kind of our short list of modifications for people to come through, but it is a one-on-one kind of experience. I mean, one woman's pregnancy is not going to be the same as the next.
Exactly.
So I don't know, maybe just some guidelines for people to follow.
Honestly, I think that if you consult the CrossFit Journal's article on CrossFitting during pregnancy, they did an excellent job summing that up, because if you're newly pregnant and you're not doing CrossFit, it's probably not the time to take up any intense CrossFit. You could still do it, scaled, modified, but if you're not used to high intensity interval training, that's not the time to introduce it. But if you're somebody that's
you're not going to hit the ground running.
Exactly. If you're somebody that's been doing an activity, CrossFit, marathon running, whatever, for at least 6 months prior to your pregnancy, you can continue that. And we have a lot of good data. It's all retrospective, where because you're never going to get good double-blind controlled kind of trials, but that there are no increase in complications. So we knew that about marathon running for years. We've known it about step aerobics and spinning and all this kind of stuff. But then CrossFit came on the scene, and it's like, okay, this is new. How's this going to affect pregnant women? Well, now we do have. It's starting to come in. The data is starting to come in that shows no increase in adverse outcomes, healthier pregnancies. Most physicians will suggest monitoring heart rate, and so if you wear a heart rate monitor, I always tell people, I'm fine with you in the yellow. And even if you go in the red some, that's okay. You just don't want to stay in the red.
What is
if you're short of breath, your baby's short of breath.
Is that why it's just kind of a lack of oxygen?
Pretty much lack of oxygen, yeah. Lactic acid buildup. You just want things. And it's really just to make sure you're getting good blood flow through that placenta and the baby's getting the nutrients. But, in my experience, the CrossFitters that I have taken care of that have CrossFit their entire pregnancies, I don't have.
Well, it's just like anything else. You hear all these kind of miracle stories of people getting in these car wrecks and then walking away because they're physically fit, versus someone who would,
exactly.
Pregnancy is a traumatic experience. It's the same kind of thing. If you're physically fit, you should
do better.
You should be doing better.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't an across the board case. There's obviously complications that are one off for certain people, but you're still just trying to physically take care of your body.
And I also think it probably delays some of the potential complications. I mean, there are a certain percentage of people that are going to develop preeclampsia or high blood pressure during pregnancy. But we know that if you're physically fit and healthy, and one of the things that has been studied is a higher protein diet to prevent preeclampsia. CrossFitters typically eat a higher protein diet kind of thing. So, and I've got a limited number. I don't have thousands and thousands, but if you look at the data, it's good. And I had the opportunity to actually talk a little bit with Greg Glassman last year about pregnancy and CrossFit and the CrossFit health movement. And they're on top of it. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more, journal articles and experts in the field. Making people feel more comfortable.
Yeah, because again, we don't ever fault people because we'll have people put their membership on hold. Some will work all the way through, and again, I can't pretend to know what it feels like to try and work out.
I really think I was just telling one of my patients yesterday that we need to take a wall ball, probably a 14, maybe a 20-pound wall ball, and put it on, but don't use your arms to hold it. We got to figure out some, way to strap it, tape it around you, and then what? And that's
I've seen those. I've seen people do workouts some they're like, hey, so and so's pregnant, so we kind of wanted to see what it was like, and they just see duct tape just all around their midline. Yeah.
I mean, obviously. What's the two things? What's the recovery look like once delivery's done? For maybe, again, I know you just have small sample size versus CrossFit or just fit women versus maybe a little more sedentary. And then how's the CrossFit health movement? What's your experience on that?
Okay, so as far as postpartum recovery, it is hard to keep people down. Once you've been bitten by the CrossFit bug, and it's really part of your everyday life and your physical health, your mental health, everything, then they deliver, and now they're not going to the gym. That can be an enormous struggle for some athletes. It just depends on how important it is to them. But for most, the ones that have been doing it for a while, it's pretty important. So, we know that they can start becoming active again at about 2 weeks. Not heavy CrossFit, but if they have a normal vaginal delivery, I'm fine with them coming back in the gym, gently rowing, get on the assault bike gently, Yeah, I don't even mind you doing squats, that sort of thing. And they just rebound so quickly. I mean, and it's really hard to keep them down for that 4 week period. Most docs will say 6 weeks. A lot of it depends on if you had any complications. For the uncomplicated pregnancy, I don't want to release them back to full CrossFit till 6 weeks, but I'll let them, tell them it's okay to come into the gym. Yeah, and then, but they recover amazingly well. I mean, it's just like anything, surgery. I mean, it's just the ones I've had to do C-sections on. I'm blown away.
Yeah,
they heal. They use very little narcotic pain medicine.
That's a question that I had as far as the difference between a normal birth and a cesarean section birth. Like, because I know we've had women here where it's like you just don't have any abdominal kind of fortitude left. So like, what can we do as coaches to kind of help that along?
I really think that just focusing on core strength, that is enormous help to really, because basically what happens is just the fascia and the muscles get all stretched out, and they'll rebound and regain their strength, but it takes a hit, and so anything that can help. I love planks.
So I was going to say planks.
And I love to have my pregnant women do planks throughout their pregnancy because they lose the ability to do a sit-up, but just put them on their, in a plank position.
Sure.
And have them do planks, and babies are still getting plenty of oxygen. There's no compression of
Are there big kind of no-go movements that we should
you don't want pregnant women to be flat on their back for any period of time after about 16 to 20 weeks, just because of the way the blood vessels come off the aorta to the uterus, and that big uterus can compress the aorta if you're laying flat on it. But what's interesting is that we're designed that our bodies kind of tell us what we can and what we can't do.
Sure.
It just gets to the point where your center of gravity is off, that you will just start developing aches and pains.
And your body's going to say, hey, stop that.
Jumping is okay, for the most part, but up until third trimester, about the time you probably shouldn't be jumping is when you can't jump.
It's kind of, so my sister, so Chris, if you saw him, they're about to have their first in about a month and 6 days. So they, and my sister comes in, and she literally was one of those workouts where she's like, well, can't do that anymore, and it's just, you can seem like you said, like we're built to be able to say,
exactly,
our body's giving
us a little bit of a warning. But you just scale or modify every single movement, and that's been, you kind of even go back to just trying to get people to buy into CrossFit. If all they see is, somebody walking across the floor on their hands, if they think that's CrossFit, they're just so sadly misinformed.
Yeah, and again, that's such a small percentage of people that are doing that.
I know, but yet that's what, sometimes tends to get showcased. So I really do, going to your second part of your question of CrossFit Health, I really love the movement that they're taking, and a lot of the marketing materials that they're doing now that show the everyday person who is getting off their diabetes medicines, off their high blood pressure medicines, because, and we know that it has benefit even if you don't lose an enormous amount of weight. We know that just the high intensity interval type training improves cardiovascular health. It improves insulin resistance.
So what, for the people that might not know, like, what is CrossFit Health? What is this movement?
Okay, so Greg Glassman, he calls it the mess, and it really, our healthcare system is a complete mess right now. When you look at the big players with insurance companies, big pharma, you pull in the government, and how it's all reimbursed, and all the misinformation out there. Basically, you have drugs that do more damage to the body than good, and you have the government supporting you. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's really, really
lining each other's pockets.
Exactly. It's a big, huge mess. And what I love is that he's got enough data now, that it's like, okay, we can go with this. Yeah. And CrossFit can still be a sport, but it really needs to be more about improving the health of,
that was going to be a question. What's your opinion on the shift that we've obviously seen within this last year? Obviously you make this big announcement, and he fired a whole bunch of their staff, and hey, we're not doing regionals, and like,
Yeah.
And I personally love it. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's the absolute right direction to go because you don't need you don't. I'm never going to do pistols again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
Yeah.
just kind
Ever.
of like you just mentioned with pregnant women that
Mm-hmm.
were like, well, I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's almost like I wish every client was pregnant, men and women,
Exactly.
and they'd be like, oh, I can't do this. Like, because obviously, CrossFit gets the rap of like, you're just
Right.
going to get hurt. And so many people are broken when they come to our program. And it's like, does this hurt? It's like, yeah. It's like, okay, well, stop doing it. And then you turn your back and they're still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
and it's usually obviously probably more of the male, younger male testosterone filled generation, in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. And like we talked about even before
Yeah.
the podcast, me and Jared were there. But anyway, all I'm trying to say, obviously with this pregnancy, you have obviously another life in your
Mm-hmm.
body.
Yep.
But it's not always as obvious when some people walk into the gym and they're broken, but they see old, Tom over here doing muscle ups, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I want to do that. And then they're just not taking
Like
the proper steps.
like you
Right.
had a shoulder reconstructive surgery. No.
Exactly.
You know, but
sorry to get on a tangent.
yeah, I was just going to say it's just one of those things to where I don't ever have to do pistols again to be fit.
Right.
I can still
Exactly.
do CrossFit. I can still exercise. I can still be a very healthy individual without doing these extreme movements, and maintain a perfectly good level of health without being in the sport of it.
Exactly.
And I think that was
Exactly.
this build up into the Open and the CrossFit
Right.
Games was always so high that it did keep a lot of those people out. And now you've got, instead of recaps of the CrossFit Games, you've got I love the old couple, the two older people, where it's like literally picking up a jug of water or standing up. Like that's a wall ball.
Exactly.
Well, again, when you go to the certification, they talk about delaying decrepitude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Right.
one of the big words I feel like they use, and I don't know how the CrossFit Health one differed from just the normal certs. But that's what life's about, right? If we're developing functional fitness in this room and building muscle, if grandma or grandpa falls down, ideally they're not going to break their hip.
Right. Well, your greatest predictor of longevity is probably leg strength. Of all the things. I mean, we push cardiovascular health, but you have got to be able to get yourself off the floor.
You should be able to pick your
If
feet
you
up
have
when
a
you walk.
prolonged hospitalization, you get a pneumonia or something, you've got to be able to get up from bed and move, and that requires leg strength and it requires mobility.
The burpee is the most important tool we have.
It really is.
It
I
is.
mean, it gets you off the floor.
Yeah. I start every fundamentals class.
You asked about the way CrossFit is moving, and I think that in terms of, for CrossFit as a brand, I think there's room for both, and I think this transition year is hard, and I really can't comment on what happened at HQ with the loss. I hate it because I love Rory and Tommy.
Oh God, yeah. I'm not saying that I'm excited those people have lost their jobs and they're gone out of the public
when
eye.
it comes to, if what you truly want is to make a difference, and you want to support your affiliates, your affiliates are not, being supportive off of one athlete that might go to the games.
Some would say it would be a deterrent in some ways, because they do require a lot more. And again, this isn't like knocking anyone that has very good athletes by any means. But it takes a lot of if you're programming for that athlete, if they're getting special treatment and again, there's a huge intimidation factor. Like you said, if you walk into a gym and you've got, somebody just racking tons of weight and you're like, I've never worked out before, that is terrifying.
Oh yeah,
that
absolutely.
is terrifying.
And I mean, we're put on this earth to make this, our purpose, I really feel, is to make it a better world. Make it, better, be a better person, choose kindness. I'm all about all that kind of stuff. So I really feel that this CrossFit Health push and focusing on that is what's going to make a difference for the greater good. You can still have the sport of fitness, and it's fun. And what people don't understand about CrossFit is that don't do CrossFit is that, okay, I love football. I love going to football games. I love the Bengals, despite their record. But I've never played football. However, there is something to be said for coming in and learning the skill of a snatch, whether all you can ever do is snatch a bar, and then watching somebody do it on TV,
and appreciating it.
Right.
It's like, oh my gosh, we're all participating in this sport. Yeah.
Get so much more respect for gymnasts,
But I think, I think they're on the right track, and I think with Julie Fouché at kind of the head of what part of it. I got to meet her at the conference, and
she's a monster.
She's a monster, and she's smart, and she knows where this needs to go. Yeah. So.
Well, I think that's a good final thing there with saying where it needs to go, because I feel like CrossFit almost looked at it like, hey, what do we want our legacy to be? Do we want to find the fittest one male, one female person in the world, or do we want to change millions of lives of everyday people?
Yeah, exactly.
I was at Thornton's yesterday buying a cup of coffee, and it had a front page of like the Lexington Herald or something like that. It was just on the way out, and it was just a map of Kentucky and broken down by counties, and it was just basically early deaths, and it was white to dark blue, and it was just like you just see this like sea on the southeastern, basically towards West Virginia. Again, a lot of those are drug overdoses and things like that. There's a higher per capita drug overdose.
Even if you took that out, it would still be the same color.
It's still the same color, right? Yeah. So again, it's
honestly, if you want to make it even broader, it goes down. I call it the SEC syndrome. It kind of, if you look, you fall down for sports. Like, you know what I mean? Like, think about it, because not only do you see the highest rates of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, but then from my field, you see those are where the highest rates of preterm birth are. They're where the highest rates of hypertension and diabetes in pregnancy, the highest rates of babies born, growth restricted. Yeah. So, and it all just comes down to the health of your community.
Absolutely.
And those are all preventable.
Pretty much.
I mean, obviously cancer is,
there is a certain genetic component, but then, oh my gosh, we could do a whole podcast on genomics and how what we eat and what we do is changing our DNA. Yeah. That's fascinating.
Absolutely. Work. I mean, and just being in a very small sense, doing some traveling into other countries and things like that, and you go to, my wife and I went to Italy, and it was like, lack of a better term, there's not a lot of fat people in Italy. It's like,
we did when David and I went to Paris. We were sitting, just on a street in Paris having coffee, and that's one of the first things he said, and I was like, it's just.
And again, you look around, and there's not a lot of places that are just going to have processed food, and there's, again, that's a whole nother podcast.
Simple kind of layup question. How do we fix this?
Oh gosh, it's really, really complex, but it's just like it's a chipper. It's not, you're going to chip away at it. It's one rep at a time, and one person at a time, one organization at a time, and that's what's going to change it. Now there are problems, at the bigger level, and then you're going to bring in
can't control.
Right, and then you're going to bring in the politics of how universal health care would affect the economy, because it would. People would lose jobs. It would change. But I think that control the controllables, and what we can do as a community, and St. Elizabeth's, one of their missions right now is to make this one of the healthiest communities in America, is we just have to chip away at it.
And you got to start with the things, like you said, the things you can control, which is bring in your friends to come work out.
Absolutely.
Hey, have your friends over. Hey, we're going to do meal prep together.
Exactly.
It's
fun.
It's fun. It's one of those things you start to teach people, like, what they've generally been taught is probably not the most accurate thing, and that's you get into the having to shift people's mindset. That's a whole nother story. But again, just bringing someone in, like, hey, I want to work out with you. Hey, I want to take you out, or come over to my house. I want to make you dinner and show you that, like, I can make something that is not fried but also tastes good.
Exactly. And you do that in the workplace. You go into an office or whatever. Like my husband, we did a team building with his team. He's in sales, and it was like, we're going to do CrossFit, and they're not even going to know they're doing CrossFit, and they're going to have fun. You know, I had a blast.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome.
I do, for respect to everybody's time, just kind of wrap a couple things up.
Okay.
I do kind of curious as far as how as a medical professional, how do we get past this stigma of like CrossFit is extreme,
Exactly.
like you're going to come in and you're going to be required to do handstands your first day. Like, how do we get past that for people?
I think that you have to approach it as, okay, that's not what CrossFit is about. CrossFit is a lifestyle that involves physical activity and a nutrition plan, okay? And take all the fancy schmancy stuff out of it.
It's just working out.
It's just working out. And it's working out in a community that will help hold you accountable. A community, people want to come to CrossFit class. And then I think in addition to that, it's, you're getting a lot more sick sitting on the couch doing nothing. That's what drives me crazy. Going back to your sports medicine question, is I get so tired of physical therapists and sports medicine doctors bad mouthing CrossFit.
Yeah.
There are injuries in any sport. Do they bad mouth distance running?
Not per capita football per 1,000 athletes. It's a 9% for like American football, 9% chance of serious injury. Olympic weightlifting is 2.3 to 3.1, and CrossFit, 2.3 to 3.4%, and then CrossFit is 3.1. So triple the amount for something like American football, which is one of the most popular sports we have.
And I do love it.
Yeah,
I love all sport, but it's and that I say all the time, it's doctors are stupid. Probably shouldn't say that, but they are. They speak sometimes, just out of not knowing, and it's so okay. So what if you pull a calf muscle doing box jumps? Okay, what that probably is saying is that you need to do more mobility work. You need to stretch. Maybe you should do box step ups and not jumps.
And what Mark said earlier is there's a chance you were broken before you came here.
Exactly.
So we get the blame for exposing some weaknesses that there is no way. I mean, we ask people on their fundamentals or their intro form, do you have any serious injuries we need to know about?
Right.
No. All right, and you start doing fundamentals like, I had a major back surgery when I fell off a horse and I had to, and you're like, why didn't you tell me that? Yeah. But again, it comes down to that's their normal. So their normal was, I've lived with this my entire life, so I'm not injured, but that's something that we need to know about. But if they don't tell us, there's no way for us to know.
But you're so injured sitting on the couch and you don't even know it.
I'm hurting right now sitting. I'm not kidding you. I can't wait till I go down and roll my back out.
Yeah, I think it's just like you said. It's just that lifestyle kind of change, and once people can wrap their heads around, oh, you know what? Hey, if let's just say once a year I get a little bump or a bruise, working out or something like that, it's not going to be if that can be somewhat of a new normal. I mean, in any type of realm of training, I've never met a single person followed a professional online that's not had a little bump or a bruise.
Oh, absolutely.
And guess what? That usually starts a learning process into, this is how I can repair my shoulder after, XYZ kind of thing. Or, hey, here's something I should avoid in the future.
And not to mention, tally up the cost of diabetes.
Oh, gosh.
Tally up the cost of, having kidney dialysis.
That's the thing. And we know plenty of people, those of us that work in the healthcare field, that if all they're doing is walking 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week, that's not getting them off their diabetes medicine. It is improving. It's better than sitting. It's a start, but it's not getting you off your diabetes medicine.
And it's a layup for the doctor to tell you that.
Well, again, on a very personal level, think of your story you just shared. What if you didn't start working out?
Oh, I know.
I
can't even imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
But there's people out there that don't. You know what I mean? So, where you were at, they're faced with that decision, and they're just like, I'll pick the couch. And then now they've missed out on maybe 10, 15 years of their life.
Yeah.
So that's the tragedy.
And they may still live But what's
it's
the
not
quality?
It's the quality of life.
You know,
Yeah.
they're seeing their
I
kids.
waited late to have kids, so I've got to stay healthy. I
Yeah,
didn't even start
absolutely.
having kids till I was 5 or something.
Tell my wife that, please. She won't listen this far into the podcast.
No one's listening at this point.
All right.
She'll be like, I'm done with that.
Oh, good.
Jerry just got a text message.
I know, right? How'd you see me? Phone's on airplane mode. So we always finish things out with a pretty simple question. That is just, what is your definition of success?
Of success. Oh my gosh. Oh, if you made me do like a word association, it would be happiness, and that makes me laugh because I'm the happy one. I kind of like that though. That's the best compliment I've got. Is she the
good.
happy one?
Yeah.
I do think that I do think that it's being happy and content with where you are in this world. It's not related to money. It's not related to personal possessions. I think that success is being happy and content in my world.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's huge.
That's great. I think that's I love it. Whenever we ask those questions, they're always moderately. They're similar,
Yeah.
right? But I really
That's
do.
an underutilized state of mind in today's world with everything.
Exactly.
And every answer we get is different, but also kind of along the same lines. It's always interesting to hear what people have to say. So thank you so much for
You're welcome.
coming and
Thanks
hanging
for
out
having me.
today.
It was fun.
Appreciate it. And thank you all for listening to Triumph Every Day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and everywhere your favorite podcasts are found. Find us at TriumphStrength.net, on Instagram at TriumphStrength, and Facebook at Facebook.com/TriumphStrength. See you guys next week.